We're joined on the phone today by wrestler Malakai Black from AEW All Elite Wrestling. He'll be at the Target Center in Minneapolis here coming up on Friday for AEW Rampage, and then again on Saturday for the AEW Full Gear pay-per-view. Malakai Black, how you doing today?
What's up, man? Good. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you so much for joining me.
No worries, man.
Well, I know we've got a lot of stuff coming our way here. AEW Rampage on Friday, AEW Full Gear on Saturday at the Target Center in Minneapolis. It's got to be great for you to get back on the road and, in front of people again, considering all the weirdness of the last 2 years here.
Yeah, weirdness in the world of professional wrestling. But then again, when is the world of professional wrestling not weird? Yeah, I always like to think that I was one of the last ones to really do the old school way of wrestling, where we went in 1 week's time. We went to 5 different cities, and we wrestled all over the place in a car with my friends or with fellow wrestlers. So that's kind of always been embedded in me. So when the live events eventually stopped and we would strictly work television, that kind of bugged me a little bit because I was spending too much time home. I think everyone was spending too much time home. But, it was what it was. But I was incredibly happy once the world kind of started getting open up again. And I do hope that in the future we'll do some more live events, because I think live events is where it's at. It's where you can really connect with an audience. And, I think it's always a good way for everyone to keep their skills sharp. And it's a great way to build up for television. And, it's just, there's something magical about hopping in a car, driving to a town, wrestling a night, and then 2 days later you finish your tour off and you go on television, and it's just fun, man. That's the one thing about this business that I really, really like, is the diversity of towns, the diversity of matches, the general, you don't know what you're going to do today kind of feel. There's a lot of on the quote on the fly to this business.
Well, and this is AEW's first venture into Minnesota. Obviously, with the history of the AWA and all the greats who came from here, Minnesota is always a great crowd for wrestling. So I'm sure there'll be some great shows here coming up.
Absolutely. It's funny because a lot of times people ask me, right, there's always the question what did you prefer wrestling the most? And there's never really one place that I can pinpoint where it's when I was here, this was, I feel the United States in general has obviously, such deep-rooted culture in professional wrestling. It's, in a sense, one of the 3 meccas of professional wrestling. Fan bases in the United States, in my opinion, are some of the best, even from back before I was signed. Working in front of a crowd in the United States was always a good time. They're very devoted. They're very excited. They're very passionate about, being wrestling fans. And I'm sure that, this coming week, that it won't be any different.
Well, do you know who you'll be facing coming up this weekend here on Rampage or Full Gear?
I have no idea. That's what I just said. It's you never know what's happening. There is there's obviously thought processes that I have that I'd like to keep for myself, because I don't want to shoot my my load preemptively. So it's always walking in and seeing what it is that you're going to do, and we're just going to make the best of it. Whatever it is, I'm going to knock it out the park.
Well, I know last time you were here in Minnesota for a big card like this, you were with a different company and you had a different name. I mean, you've gone through a lot of stuff in the last 6 months.
Yeah, I have. But again, it comes down to the very first question that you asked me. I love the diversity of this. And, it's when I look back at all the stuff that I've done, whether the perception of people on the outside is negative or positive, for me, I take everything as a positive step forward. Everything happens because it needed to happen. And I have only gotten better because of the position that I was put in. You also have to understand, right? I come from a country, a very small country in the world, the Netherlands, that has no wrestling background, none. I had to make it completely on my own. and I got to the WB. I got to AEW. I've been working on television for nearly 6 years in a preemptive good spot. So whatever happens and whatever has happened, I'd say I've done pretty well for myself.
Yeah, definitely. I think the transition you've made really seems to have turned out for the best. And, you know, the way things are set up at AEW and with the kind of corporate environment at WWE, especially for a character like yours, I imagine you must have a lot more freedom and a lot more say in the direction of your career here.
Yeah, it's, you know, like when I initially, you know, I only had 2 days to kind of convince Tony. I had this ball of information because I had this entire thought process on Malakai. And I basically, my first conversation, because obviously when you're under contract, you're not allowed to talk, negotiate, or have any sorts of conversation in regards to business relations. So we had to wait an entire month. And then obviously 2 days before, I actually made my appearance on AEW in Miami. I had a conversation with Tony. I said, Tony, this is what I'm thinking. And after 5 minutes of explanation, he's like, yeah, no, I love it. Let's do it. I was like, really? He's like, yeah, let's do it. So I think because I set my sights high, and when I came in, I immediately, you know, knocked it out the park. I think that garnered a lot of trust with Tony to realize that, like, I know what I'm doing. Obviously I've been in this business for 21 years. So, you know, I hope that at one point people realize that I know what I'm doing. You know, but at the same time, it's always a creative cooperation between myself and Tony. You know, I have to run things by him, and, you know, I want to get his thoughts on him because, you know, he's the boss at the end of the day. He needs to be satisfied. He needs to be okay with it. And, of course, I need to as well. But I feel like so far I've been working with Tony very well. I've been given my platforms to communicate with him. He has given me a platform to communicate it with you, the audience. And if I look at my numbers in terms of like my merchandising, in terms of like how I do on television with viewership and stuff, there's nothing to complain about, you know? So I think that speaks volumes. Sometimes you can get the biggest reaction, but on the business side of things, people aren't attracted to you. And luckily that is not the case with me. So I think I've like I said, I've managed to garner trust with Tony, and that is the reason why the platform for me has been the way it is.
Awesome. Again, AEW is coming to the Target Center here in Minneapolis Friday for Rampage, and then the Full Gear pay-per-view on Saturday. And we're with Malakai Black, and, you know, it seems like so many guys like you and CM Punk and Bryan Danielson, Adam Cole now have made their way to AEW. And how important has that been for the company from a wrestler standpoint? I mean, you guys are really gaining a lot of ground and becoming a contender here in the world of wrestling.
You know, there is no debating the value of a guy like a Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson nowadays, and CM Punk and Adam Cole. You know, their names in the world of professional wrestling. And they've obviously carved an entire path and a fan base for themselves. And for a company like AEW to employ myself and, you know, the aforementioned gentleman, but also like a Ruby Soho, you know, it's important that those headpieces are there so that an audience like that's already previously been built, you know, will follow. And I'll be the first one to say I don't do the us versus them politics. I just don't. I love professional wrestling. I still have a lot of friends in the other company, both in the office and, you know, in the locker rooms. I just want everyone to do well. I want everybody to be able to come out of this with enough money to support their families and with enough good mental health to live a long and fulfilling life. And, you know, I want AEW to keep on growing and growing, which it currently obviously is. You know, it's like, for me, from a perspective of television, the way that is involved with, you know, where I was prior to here, there is no difference. Like, people are working equally as hard in the ring and behind the scenes as anywhere else. AEW is a company that's built on love, and it's built on love for the business. And that is a integral part of what makes it so charming for professional wrestling fans, because that love translates through the ring, through Tony's voice, through the presentation, through everything. So it really is a company that is progressive, is making waves, and will continue to make waves.
Definitely. Well, I got to ask you, you and I are roughly the same age. What's it like for you to be backstage and, be surrounded by guys like Arn Anderson and Tully and Sting, Jake the Snake? I mean, that as a wrestling fan, that's got to be a bit of a trip for you.
It is. It is. And it's also equally as valuable as you think it is. If you have minds like Arn Anderson and Sting and Tully and Jake the Snake and all these guys that, have been mainstays in the world of professional wrestling for decades, to, show that they genuinely care about your character and your direction. And, and I have to mention Dean Malenko and Jerry Lynn too, and Mark Henry.
Sure.
And Taz, they're just guys who've been big names in their eras, big names in their companies, successful individuals that each stand out on their own, with their own style, their own individual characters. And to have that in this company, to have that like part of the steering wheel of AEW, the ship that it's AEW, is crazy. I come out of a match with, I think with Don, it was Dante Martin, and Sting walks up to me and he said, like, out of anyone in the business right now, you are the person that I watch the most. And that to me, that blows my mind.
Yeah.
It blows my mind that someone like Sting takes the time to look at what I'm doing, because in my book, I'm still the same kid from Amsterdam, right? And he cares enough for him to look, but also he cares enough to allow himself to understand it and enjoy it. You know what I mean? Because all these gentlemen have every right to say, no, I'm not going to watch. No, I'm not going to. But they're not. They're completely involved in everything that we do.
Awesome. Well, I know you've been feuding with Cody Rhodes as of late. Who are you hoping to work with next in AEW if you had a choice?
Oof, if I had a choice, like you're asking, I would say, Jericho, Christian Cage, because I think both gentlemen are, in my book, some of the best that this business has ever seen. And by the way, when I mentioned the Arns and the Tullys and the Jakes, Christian and Jericho are part of that fabric. Like every once in a while, I'll talk to Jericho and I'll ask him for some things and get some thoughts on it. I think for a casual wrestling fan, seeing myself against Jericho, Christian would be very interesting. The younger generation, like guys like obviously like Kenny, Hangman, even like guys like Brian Cage and stuff, and then even the younger generation, like a guy like Hobbs, like I would love to compete against Hobbs, because I think Hobbs is a guy that has a lot of potential, very like diamond in the rough type individual who has all the skills. He just needs to come into his own. And it's the same what I did with Dante Martin, because I requested to work with Dante Martin, because I feel that I could bring something out of him. I could show the world something about Dante, and Dante could learn something about himself and about, structural matches, etc., that he didn't know prior before that. And I think that doing that for a guy that's, I wouldn't say in the twilight, but like I'm 36, if I have another good 10 years left, that's great. But whilst I'm still being built, I also feel that it's important for me to take the time to build others. And by me building others and building stars in the company grows stronger, because there's going to be a business after me. And I also need to help the business that comes after me. And guys like Hobbs, or like a Dante Martin, or his brother, or Fuego del Sol, all these guys have something special. All these guys have something unique. And it might not manifest itself in the first year, 2 or 3 years, but when you look at them, you know that there is something about them. And I'm trying to get that something about them to move to the foreground, because that is what eventually the business is going to be built on. These kids that, 10, 15 years ago, I was in the same spot they were. And there was a lot of guys that either wanted to help me or did not want to help me, because they saw that in me. And they were like, well, if I reinforce this, it might cost me my spot. And I don't want to, I'm not one of those guys. You know what I mean? The business is going on whether or not I'm in it. But I also feel that I found the perfect balance to build others while also building myself.
Awesome, man. Well, again, AEW Rampage on Friday, Full Gear on Saturday at the Target Center, and I'm looking forward to those. And thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me.
And again, that was AEW's Malakai Black, and AEW will be at the Target Center in Minneapolis on Friday for AEW Rampage, and on Saturday for the AEW Full Gear pay-per-view.